All right, so let's get started. Anyone who trickles in, we'll circle back if need be. So, hey everybody, I am Leanne. I am the acting chair of the ISOTEM Dems. For those of you who do not know who else is joining us, we have some of our Southampton Dems joining us, as well as their leader, Gordon Herr. If you want to say hi.
Hi everybody, and thank you very much. I appreciate the fact that iSlip is allowing us to piggyback on this event this evening. So very much appreciate it. I'll leave it up to Luann to continue. Thank you, Luann.
Perfect. What some of this may seem iSlip central because that's kind of how we originally designed it, but the basic rules of petitioning are kind of the same throughout. So if you have any questions or concerns, we're still happy to address them. But if you hear iSlip mentioned a lot, sorry.
No problem.
With that, I'm going to hand it over to Derek, who prepared some slides.
Right. I did. Right. So hello, everyone. My name is Derek. I'm from Central Islip. I'm actually going to be the acting chair of the secretary of the ISOTEM Dems. Yeah, can't talk today. Good start. But anyways, so here is just I figured the first thing and the most important thing is just to know what the petition is and what it kind of looks like. So on the right here is just what it literally will look like. The only difference would be that you would have names of candidates listed for each or any given position. But basically, they're just the way to get any elected candidate for elected office on the ballot in New York State. All elected officials, except for statewide officials, have to go through this process. Unless they are in a primary, then they do still have to statewide as well. And prior to 2020, the requirements were that you would need 3,500 signatures to get on the ballot as a congressional candidate. State Senate would need 3,000, and a state assembly candidate would need 1,500 valid signatures of all just members of the party to get on the ballot. That was lowered by, I believe, 90% in 2020 due to the COVID-19 pandemic, and also in 2021 for the local elections. So they only needed, in that year, they needed 350 for it, but so it was very different that year, of course, too, because that was right during the pandemic when petitioning was going on. They also are needed for elected judicial positions and for party committee positions. And this petition, of course, is also only used for these positions. If you're running for, say, school board or something else, that's totally different. They would have a totally different petition. It looks very similar to this, but it's a different form that's not part of this. So those would not use it.
I may for a minute. Keep in mind that when you get your actual petition, it will be a legal size paper. It's a very ugly pea green color. Those are printed by SCDC. And if you are looking to become a committee person for the first time, your signature goal is at least 5% of the Democrats in your electoral district. So it's going to vary by electoral district compared to the candidates that have a set requirement. The goal is always to double no matter what the candidate is, or if it's a committee person running, to double your signatures for just in case, which we'll get down to later on, but just keep that in mind.
Yeah, and just from personal experience, I know we collected 5,000 petitions for our signatures for one of the congressional campaigns I worked on, 2018. So that just kind of gives you an idea of how many they want to get, just to make sure there's no legal issues in getting on the ballot. So the key things to know here is just that. Oops, tried to move the chat box. The petition carriers must be registered members for the same political party. So you have to be a registered Dem. I hope you all are. Otherwise, you will not be able to carry petitions for Democratic candidates or to join the Democratic committee. And they're circulated on just an electoral district by district basis. So that one particular electoral district will have a particular set of petitions that would need, because it's based on the state Senate candidates, it's based on state assembly candidates, congressional candidates, what have you. So if you're in, and you're in Islip, it would be between one of the two congressional districts. In Southampton, I believe it might be two as well now.
Correct.
And so, and then it would be the same with any Senate or assembly districts. If there's any splits there, you would just have to make sure that you have each of the correct signatures in whatever area you're walking. And the way we do that and make sure where you're walking is valid is we will actually give you turfs that will correspond to that area. And you'll receive a walkbook with the list of voters. That is just a huge book. It's, at least in my electoral district, it's 25, 30 pages. And it's just a list of every single registered voter in your neighborhood, pretty much. Democrat, Republican, Independent. It's not very readable, which is the one issue when you're just walking. So that's why we'll be able to make sure you have turfs as well. Garrett?
Yeah, I was gonna interject there that we are gonna try and make this easier for everybody by cutting turfs. So that way you kind of go to people who are both definitely Democrats and they're in a condensed, easy to read format. And also the way that we're going to do them is we're going to selectively pick out Dems who are far more likely to both be engaged in the political process enough to now answer the door when you knock and be likely to sign your petition when you go, hey, I need you to sign this for the political process, and you do your spiel. We really do want to commit to making this as easy as possible for everybody, which is why Derek and myself and 2 or 3 other people are going to be cutting lots and lots and lots of turfs in vote builder over the next
Oh yeah, that's next
lots
2
of
weeks.
turfs.
Just for the few people on from Southampton, and just give you other guys an idea what we do. We've always used minivan. We've used minivan for years and years. And I know, Leanne, that's something that you've done as well. But my understanding is because of the change in districts, minivan might not be updated. So what we'll do, which we've done in the past, is we'll also cut turfs, but we basically will have PDF files, which we'll email to people for their specific election district, also broken down by party for the Democratic Party, and also for prime Democrats. So we are very specific on that too. So I'm not even sure if we're going to push minivan this year because of the possible emissions in minivan. So we will probably have paper, but we're going to email out the PDFs to the people who are going to be walking.
On our turfs, in case anyone hasn't canvassed for a campaign before, typically on a turf, you'll have voter information that I'm not necessarily sure is in the walkbook. It might be.
No, it's usually with if you're walking a turf, it would have the age,
Yes.
gender. The only thing that's on the walkbooks is the address and registration.
I thought so. So if you're walking for Islip on this turf that's cut for you, normally you see turf cut in Islip just for a campaign, in which case you're asking for support or gauging support for a particular candidate that's running. We're using this a little differently this year in that instead of asking for support for a candidate or two, we're asking poll questions, which will be on the sheet next to each voter, where you can easily record their responses. And that way we're getting some kind of data back while we're at the door. And for messaging, campaigning policy, what have you, that we could target electoral district by electoral district, because even though, if you're in Southampton, if you're in one corner, it's good, the concerns will be different from the other, and the same thing in Islip. So no 2 hamlets are exactly the same. And that way we can micromanage our data a lot better. And as Derek said, just to reinforce, you have to be a registered Democrat to carry a petition, but you also have to make sure that the person signing is the Democrat you're asking for. And no one else can sign that on their behalf. This is a legal document.
And also on that, in that same kind of line, you also, it doesn't, you can get people to sign in anywhere in Suffolk County. It's not based on just, there's not a limit based on what assembly district you live in, like there is for joining the committee. So you can, if you're carrying petitions for a campaign and they send you out to Riverhead, that would be no problem. You can collect signatures there. Of course, there would be people in Riverhead who could do that, but there's always overlap. That's a constant thing that happens with campaigns and committees once petitioning starts, because they very much want to make sure they get on there. So then just for some other basic info, you know, in 2021, the petitions were different than what they're going to be, I believe, this year. They had every candidate for every position listed on one single sheet, and it was the easiest thing in the world. This year, we're not going to have that. It's going to be each candidate will have their own petition. So that does make it certainly a little more difficult at the doors, just because you'll have somebody having to sign perhaps 3 or 4 different sheets just to get through it. So that definitely keep that in mind. Whereas last past year, if they signed it, you only had to sign 1. So and a petition signer can only sign for 1 petition. So in a case of a primary, they cannot sign for 2 candidates, or that second one will be thrown out. My understanding of that. And anyone carrying petitions, you can't sign your own. You would have to sign somebody else's.
In other words, you can't witness. In other words, you can't witness your own signature.
Correct. Yep. So as far as the timeline, it's pretty straightforward this year. It's March 1st is the first day to sign petitions. That's when the designating period starts. And March 11th is the last day for those to be submitted to the state. Or April 11th, sorry. And so because of that, we at the Islip Dems, what we're looking for, and I think Suffolk Dems as a whole is looking to do, is to have them turned in by March 22nd, I believe, or 21st.
You want me to explain that?
Yeah, sure.
Okay.
Wasn't sure the exact date.
Once your petitions are done, can you actually go back to the petition itself? Once you fill up a petition, or once you finish, hit your goal, the full sheet doesn't have to be full, though we always love full sheets. There's a testimony box at the bottom that I'm not sure we can make any bigger on this. It's not necessarily hard to fill out. It's your name, your address, and then you have to sign and date your petition. So let's say you started your petition on March 1st, but you didn't get to the bottom of it until March 10th. You don't sign and date it until you get to the bottom of it, or you're finished petitioning, but you don't have to have a separate petition for each date. Just you want them to go in chronological order. When having people in front of you at the doors filling out the petition, keep in mind you need the date and the signature, but if you'd like to speed things along, you can fill in their address yourself. Their signature has to be theirs, but you can fill in their address if it makes it easier for you. Sometimes people are older. Sometimes, they have a hard time holding the clipboard, whatever it may be. Speaking of clipboard, it's a whole lot easier if you have a legal sized one, because the form is otherwise too long on the regular side. So if you're going petitioning, you want to go get a legal size clipboard. It makes life easier. So at the bottom, you do have to attest that you saw these signatures. You can fill out their address, not a big deal. After you turn in your petitions, there's a reason why we need that buffer time in between when we get the petition to when the petition actually gets submitted. It's called scrubbing. So essentially what happens is the Suffolk County Dems take our petitions, make sure that we have all our I's dotted and our T's crossed. And then they go through, and whatever signatures may look problematic or aren't clear, got wet, whatever, they'll quote unquote scrub it. And that's why you also need extra signatures, because sometimes Republicans can go back if they'd like and challenge a signature. And you never want to have the candidate get thrown off because of 2 bad signatures. So you always want that extra buffer. So
And
can-
that does happen. I will point out that that's happened to she was then county legislator Monica Martinez back in 2015, I believe, here in Islip. I know that's happened with other candidates. I think a couple candidates last year in Nassau County were thrown off as well for similar things. So it definitely happens where they will be challenged.
we look at Republicans look at ours, and that's why we want like the buffer, and that's why there is a process to make sure that they are as clean as possible before sending them to the state where they will be seen by the other side. Before
just-
we,
I have a question for you about the form because I'm looking at it here. So in other words, they're going to sign and then they print their names, or we can print their names as well.
Now, the names aren't printed. They signed. No printing required. Only a signature.
Okay, but the form says printed name.
No, don't worry about that.
That
This
one's
is not the right form.
It's not a it's not a
Okay.
current form.
Okay, fine, thank you.
And the other thing is that generally speaking, the petition that we get will have the name of the town printed on the right-hand side. So all the signer needs to do, or you as a petitioner carrying petitions, just put the street address. You don't need the hamlet, and you don't need the name of the town. You definitely do not put down the hamlet. It's not necessary. We want to make it as easy and as simple as possible. So the less information you put on, or they expected to put on, the better. Just the street address, 25 Garden Street, Deering, whatever the street is, that's it. Don't worry about whether you put in a hamlet or not necessary.
Okay.
he's absolutely.
Oh,
right.
actually, here is an example one.
Oh,
Okay.
good, you got it.
Okay, perfect.
This one has all the delegates, but yeah, you can see here, the date would just go right here.
Mhm.
Name, the town is here. The format's a little messed up, just I think from Google Docs, but
I want to check, the one Keith sent us is easier to read in this format.
yeah, this is the one
I just-
you just sent me. Let's see.
So while Derek is doing that, let's go over, we have primaries, as we all know.
Mhm.
And you as a petitioner have every right to carry all three, like let's say you're in CD1, you can carry all three petitions and have the voter decide, who they want to support. Or you have the right to pick one candidate and then carry just that one petition. It's totally up to you. I don't know, I won't speak for Southampton, but us as a committee in Islip, we did not endorse any one particular candidate. We are carrying for everyone. So we're leaving it up to individual committee members as to what they want to do. If you decide to carry more than one petition in a primary, again, the voter can only pick one. So again, let's say you're carrying for Kara, Bridget, and Jackie. You can carry all three, but you can't have one voter sign all three. They can, they have to pick, if in a primary, they can only pick one. But let's say you're carrying, your state assembly, your congressional person, your own petition to be on the committee, they can sign those as multiples, just not a primary multiple, if that makes sense.
Yeah, and I would never suggest any of my committee people to carry three petitions and allow the voter to choose. It's too confusing, and most of the time the voter really doesn't know. And so we would have our three petitions or however many available, and we'd suggest that the committee, and that's what's going to happen. Each committee person, whoever's carrying the petition, is going to choose who they're going to get signatures for. And so I would suggest that they carry that signature and have some of the other petitions available, because if they get to a door and the voter says, oh, I'm not signing for so-and-so, I'm supporting this person, you can then say, oh, fine, I have that petition as well. But I wouldn't take three petitions to a door and leave it to the voter to decide. It's just too confusing. But that's what my position is, and I would never allow anyone in Southampton. I wouldn't not allow it, but I would not suggest that they take three petitions with them.
All right, so you got up the petition. This is what they will look like for you. You just got to put in the month and day. The name of the signer is where the signature is supposed to go. Printed names, unless they're printed essentially like as on their license. Like I've noticed younger voters don't know script. So they print their names. As long as that's what's on their driver's license, that is acceptable. And as Gordon was saying, the town has already printed there for you. All you need is their street address, which they could fill out, or you can, it's up to you. At the bottom, oh, that's so much easier to read. The statement of witness.
I don't know why the format was so bad on the other one, but
Google could be strange.
Google just messed it up.
PDF versus a doc file.
That must be it.
So the first place is where you print your name, where you reside. There's in the little paragraph a short line. That's where you write how many signatures you collected for that particular sheet. So if you didn't finish the sheet of 15 and you got 12, you put 12 there. The date at which you finished, and then your signature. And that's essentially the rules of the road, the big ones of petitioning. If you come across somebody who has never seen a petition, which does happen, I usually explain it in the most basic way that I can, especially because in the past couple of years, getting time at the doors is pretty quick during COVID. Essentially, I explain it as both, all candidates are required to have this. They have to meet a certain threshold, depending on the candidate, of how many signatures. And this is how you have choices at the ballot. This is not a promise that you will vote for any of these candidates. It's not even a promise you will be voting, although we would like you to. But essentially, and this works in for at least a lot of Democrats, if we don't get enough signatures, you will only have Republicans to vote for. That has been a surefire no each and every single time, and pretty much kills most objections unless they were going to vote Republican anyway.
Mhm.
In which case I make a note of that, because then I don't want to go back. Does anyone have any questions? Trying to scroll through and see if anyone has any questions. So you want to just do me a favor and unmute? No one? We did that good of a job? No one has
Nobody.
any questions?
I have a
Mike?
question,
Sure.
if I can. I saw in the prior form, it looked like having a notary was some advantage, but I don't see that on the current form. Is that no longer a thing?
That's for working
So-
family parties and smaller parties. Notaries
The-
get their signatures.
Well, the way that actually, so if you're a registered public notary, you can collect signatures for a candidate to get them on the Working Families Party line or the before 2020 with the Independence line, all the other minor parties.
Okay.
Now, and that's still the case now. Yeah, it's just that if you're a public notary, you can collect for any political party.
Hi,
Oh,
Mike.
for any, so
Yeah.
it can be used for Democrats.
Yeah.
It seems like you'd have a wider range over all of Suffolk instead of just the little town that you're locked in.
Yeah,
The thing about a notary, though, you've got to be really careful when you're getting signatures of notary, because that can really be challenged, especially if you are, technically you're supposed to swear in each person, and you don't. I mean, I'm a notary and I've collected signatures for the good Independence Party, Working Families Party, and all that sort of stuff. And technically, you're supposed to go to the door and you're supposed to say, I'm not registered with the Working Families Party. I'm a notary, and so I've got to swear you in. Put your hand up, and they put their hand up, and it's really not an easy thing to do. It takes much more time, and people do it because the Working Families Party and Independence Party never got their own signatures, and we did it for them. And the other thing is sometimes a candidate doesn't have enough volunteers, and so they hire notaries to go out and get signatures for them.
Okay,
So that's the whole point.
thank you.
So getting to Michael's question, sorry your mic isn't working. So for most committee members, no, you typically will not see a challenge. Usually if you get your signatures and some extra, you're more than fine to go. I mean, if they really wanted to be pests this year or any year, they could, but we're just usually not big enough fish to fry that it really is worth their time and effort to go through a challenge. They usually save that effort for candidates, particularly if they, the candidates are the threat or not. So it's not impossible, but it's not likely.
Also, like functionally speaking, that opens them up to equally retaliatory, petty BS from our side. They don't want to open that can of worms, especially because arguably the parties can just appoint committee members later. So there's no value to it. It's just being kind of a D-bag to do it. If the Republicans got something out of it, maybe they would consider doing it, but they don't. And don't apologize for your mic.
Don't
Technical problems
apologize.
happen. It's
Glad
fine.
you got your question in. What's up, Josh?
I have a
Yeah, so-
question. Sorry.
You go first. Sorry.
Okay, I have a question for you because we were thinking of having the people who are carrying our petitions carry voter registration and absentee ballot forms with them in case anyone in the households that they go to needs to be registered or have an absentee ballot. We had heard from, I forget the chain that it came to me, that it had been part of the success of Southold having the increased voter turnout that they had in the most recent election, where their numbers were very high. So I was just wondering if you've ever had experience with that or thought about doing that.
We've tossed that idea around a few times. We can definitely make sure that our committee people have that on hand. It's never a bad idea to be able to register a voter. I found a lot of voters find it easier just to do it online because you can't, but at least that way, if you collect the form, you got it and you can pass that in. Especially if you're looking for Democrats and you're at a Democratic household, you're more than, because you have to take a voter registration form, whether they pick a party or they pick an opposing party. So keep that in mind. You are now responsible to take it. But since you're at a Democratic home, you're more than likely going to get what you're looking for. It's always a good idea. Any way in which you can register voters is never bad. One thing I keep encouraging our committee people to do is when you're at a door, especially if it's an excited voter, talk about the committee. A lot of people don't even realize we're here, and let them know that way you're part of the sausage making. You get to have a say in candidates and policy and, really get your fingers into the cookie jar, because it's not just, everyone knows when the president's running, everybody knows, like all those big races. But this is what you could do on the in-between that, helps build up for presidents. I keep trying to remind people that the elusive base that we all talk about, you're the foundation of it. You are very much the unsung heroes of it, because you're the ones who get the signatures. You're the ones who talk to your neighbors. You're the ones who get them involved in the committee. You're the ones who's forever developing that bench and, the workforce that keeps democracy going. So anything you could do, whether it be talking about your committee, registering a voter, that is never a bad idea. Ever. And I definitely would love to see, each and every single person speak to those things. Because I think one thing we do wrong as a party is we don't train how to use your time at the doors. Last petition cycle, I came across 3 or 4 really excited voters. They're now members of the committee. And, those are things that we fail to mention to people before they go knock on the door. You get someone excited, tell them what you do, tell them how to get involved, give them your email, give them our website, whatever it is you feel comfortable. I ended up switching my phone numbers with them. And that way later on, when I got home, when they had questions, I could answer them. But those are things that are never a bad idea. And you get to know your neighbors.
Mm-hmm.
And what I'll say is, I just want to tag on to that. If you don't feel comfortable giving out your personal information, I understand. I'm a millennial. I personally hate talking on the phone to anybody. What we will do is provide you with the town email address, the town committee email address. So that way you can say, hey, if you have questions, email these folks. And like 8 of us are in that email. So we'll be able to get back to those folks really quickly.
Mm-hmm.
The next person up was Josh, and then we'll take Andrea.
Okay. I was just I don't know if I caught it, maybe I might have missed it. So it's for the committee to run for committee person, to run to be a committee person, it's 5% of Can you breathe or something like that in the area?
Bare minimum is it's a little algebraic equation, 'cause it's gonna vary electoral district by electoral district. Like, I need a lot more than Garrett needs Iceland. Garrett needs like 4, I probably need like 40. We would factor in, and this again, if you're an Iceland done, this will all be in your packet, as well as a script for English and Spanish. You have to get a bare minimum of 5% to make your quota. So this goes back to, oh, you're up to 15. Congratulations, just not.
You're
Like
getting there. You're moving up.
Garrett, and you have a bare minimum of 15. It wouldn't be a bad idea to get 20, 25. I always go for the double because again, that's extra doors to knock on, other people to get to know. And I'm in LD9, so I've knocked these doors so many times. These poor folks know I'm coming and see my face, know I'm there for either Jorge, Sammy, myself, Monica Martinez, the same neighborhood crew, and they're ready, like they're trained now. Andrea, what's up?
Yeah, hi. This is great. Thank you for doing this. I think one of the most frustrating things I've found, and my husband and I are EDs together, is when we go out, and we've tried various times of day, early evening, weekends, weekday, is when you go from door to door and nobody answers the door, nobody's home. In your experience and the experience of the other people on your committee, what have you found to be the most successful time period?
Dinner time.
Or
Hands down, dinner time.
dinner time?
You get them while they're eating, when they just are getting home from work.
Okay.
I found that evenings around dinner, and especially Sunday nights, I kill it on Sunday nights and petitions, because everyone is home, everybody's getting ready for work on Monday or school, and I found that's when I tend to get lucky and get the most signatures. I have found Sunday mornings not to be worthwhile because people are usually at church or running errands for the week. Saturdays, mid-afternoon haven't been that bad for me. I don't suggest Saturday mornings because if they're home, they're watching cartoons and hanging out, and they don't want to see you, in my opinion. But that's just, again, me. But I found weeknights, except for Friday, and Sunday nights to be the most fruitful. It's never a bad idea to have a buddy. Never go into somebody's house. I know that occasionally you will get invited. Stay on that doorstep. Do not go in. If you have never canvassed before or petitioned before, if you come up to a house with a gate, never a bad idea just to shake it a little bit just to see if there's some kind of dog there. Normally they will make sure that they let you know they are there. But it's never a bad idea. It's a good habit to have. Have a couple extra pens. Hand sanitizer, I found, is always a good thing to have in your pocket for this. Again, I really highly suggest a legal size clipboard because it is a pest when you don't have that with these long sheets. I found a good habit, unless you want to make a couple trips to SCDC like I've had to, once you get to the bottom of your sheet, fill that out and sign it, because if you're anything like me, you will turn it in and forget to sign it and then have to go back and sign it. So I kind of suggest just doing that as you go along. Again, if you're an ISLIP, you're going to be handed a packet with a script in English and Spanish because we do have a large Latino population. I have found, even though I butcher the language, they appreciate me trying and having it in front of them so they could read as always backup in case I really did a poor job of reading it. So you all will have that, as well as access to a Google Sheet that will be broken down by town districts with your leaders' information on it, as well as backup phone numbers should you have questions, concerns, or need some kind of support. The one thing I'm gonna ask, beg, and plead for is, as you go along, if you could just put on the Google Sheet, like where you're at compared to your goal. That way, if you need support or we need to come up with a plan B somewhere, we can adjust accordingly. Your district leaders will be checking in if you're kind of not putting in that info. Yeah, don't make Eric call you. He doesn't like the phone. But nonetheless, we're trying our best to stay on track. All our phone numbers, again, will be there. So should you need support, it's always there. Don't hesitate to ask. We've done this several times around. We know life comes up. You just need to give us a heads up so this way we can get the job done. Any other questions? I'm proud. If we did this in 45 minutes and less than that, because we started a few minutes late, I'm gonna count that as a win.
Tremendous
Again,
W.
just be pleasant. It's
Again,
really
the speed down.
concerned about. It may sound a little daunting because you are going to have to carry multiple petitions this year. I found having a couple of each petition with a binder clip, so I can kind of use it as a tab system to get through, helps, especially in the winter if you have gloves or it's dark out. Josh, did you raise your hand again?
Yes, one more question.
Sure.
I'm trying, so I might have missed it again, but when are we able to go ahead and start this whole process?
March 1st.
So essentially, if you get a signature prior to that date, it is useless. It's strictly within that time period. So March 1st to the 22nd, well, 21st, because you want to hand them in on the 22nd. And that way we can get them back to SCDC for scrubbing. What else was I?
And also getting it back to SCDC, and it's also important for candidates too. It's important just so that they have, if they're short, they can adjust, they can kind of figure it out, and just kind of make sure they're able to get that in.
Yeah,
Unfortunately,
this process.
Unfortunately, this is our process. Is not kept up with the times. It's not the most friendly, and they decided to move it up to winter, which means to me that the people who make these decisions don't actually do the walking. But nonetheless, we get the job done, and we always make sure our candidates hit our numbers. We just need to keep in communication. So again, if you need help, do not be shy. We've been there before. I think last year was probably one of the hardest years, in the last 2 years, just because of COVID. But now that we're getting back to normal, it should be a whole lot easier. There's no mask mandate anymore, so I'm sure that lifts a lot of concern. Most people are vaccinated. If you want to wear your mask and gloves, you're more than welcome to. But again, just keep the line of communication open, and if you need help, don't be afraid to ask for it. Any other questions about the petition itself? Any questions that you're concerned about that may come up from a voter, and anything?
Oh, I will just say, if you are in certain, like Congressional District 2, maybe the new Congressional District 2, or one of the newer, the redrawn Assembly or Senate districts, you might have a placeholder person on that ballot as the name there. That might not be the final candidate, so just keep that in mind if somebody asks to, like, oh, who's running? They might just not be the person who ends up running, just because, again, with the maps and just with how that time frame worked out, the candidate recruitment process has been much slower than in the past. So just keep in mind with that. We'll have on the iSlip side, we'll be able to let you know if there's any cases where that is an issue.
Well, if everyone's good, I will respect your time and I'll let you go. It was a pleasure seeing all of you. Amy, thanks for popping in. You were quiet that whole time.
Yeah, I have one over here, but this was very, very helpful for us in Smithtown. We're up to 3 different congressional districts now, so
I don't envy you.
yeah, no, we're like a little freaking out, but this was very helpful to us in Smithtown. My friend Patty Stoddard's on, and we're gonna do some training at the end of the month, so we're looking forward to doing that. Thank you.
Well,
But
thank
look at
you.
it this way. At least you guys got a bunch of Dems now. You guys are gonna be popular.
Yeah, thank
I'm
you.
looking at
Thank
the bright
you.
side for you,
My
Amy.
pleasure, Gordon. It was good.
Yeah, and thank you very, very much. And I just want to see that Larry Silverman is on here. Larry, do you have any words of wisdom for us?
You're muted.
Mute. Mm-hmm.
You're still
No, you're
muted.
still muted. it.
All right, thanks, Larry. In other words, he's got nothing to say. Larry, I'll talk to you some other time. Thank you, everybody. Thank you very much, Leanne. Thanks, Karen.
All
Thanks,
right.
Derek.
Thank you all. Have a
Bye.
great night.
Bye.
Thank you.